Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin, absolutely delighted to have your company tonight, and with me in the studio, Alan Ruff and Gordon Smith on this Thursday to look over today's headlines and ahead to some of the football over the weekend. Domestic football is back after that international break, and here's what we'll be discussing tonight. Quite a lot to get our teeth into, and delighted that Gordon and Ruffy are here ready to talk first of all about Craig Gordon. This is what he had to say today ahead of that match against St Mirren about the appeals process, and there needs to be a greater transparency, especially with three referees where he's not quite sure people know their allegiances.
It seems quite a kind of clouded subject on how they get to the decisions. As far as I'm aware, it goes to three referees that there's no comeback. You don't know who they are. It's a strange system. You never know who the referees are, who their allegiances might be, and I just think that's probably not the best way to go about it.
Well, that's an interesting one, Ruffy. Give us your take.
Yeah, I don't understand that. There's a bit of paranoid going on. I think these three referees who are picked have been picked very sensibly. I don't think there's anything going on behind the scenes. The thing I would add to it was I would like to know how they come to the decisions, because I think we're a wee bit confused about some of them. Not all of them, but some of them. But if somebody was to come out, I don't think the three referees need to come out, somebody from the Referees Association was to come out and say this is how we came to this conclusion and end the story. We just deal with it and move on. I think it's all the sort of the clips that we saw, particularly with me, with Morales, and obviously with the kick with Alan McGregor. I definitely thought they were, red card offences. And if somebody could just tell us why, because a lot of us are very naive in the wording of the law, the rules of the game, and that's football players as well. So if somebody was to come out and say, like, this is it in black and white, why we do this, we might be a little bit easy to take it on board.
Gordon?
I think that's a correct point, that you need to have transparency. I don't think the allegiance thing has to come into it, because I don't know...
What transparency do you think?
Transparency, as Ruffy said, though, in terms of saying, here's the reason why we came to this decision.
Yeah.
It was... my understanding is that it has to be unanimous decision on what they're doing as well, and if it's not unanimous, they can't make that decision. I don't know whether it has to be a 2-1 or whether it's the three people.
But Craig Gordon's talking there about three refs and possibly their allegiances. That's a lot of nonsense.
I think that's wrong to talk about allegiances, because then you would be saying, right, OK, should every referee tell your allegiance when they're actually in a job? And I must be honest with you, I remember speaking to people when I was in at the SFA about this, and they're saying it shouldn't have any... The one thing about the referees I did find was they're more concerned with their own performance and how they're regarded than they are in terms of allegiance to MD. I mean, you could support a team as a player and you're playing against another team and you're going to be trying to win just the same. It doesn't matter. Allegiance shouldn't come into it at all. So I don't think it's something that should be brought up in terms of these referees with transparency to say, oh, this guy's there was three people on the panel, two were Celtic fans and one was a party or a Rangers fan. You know what I mean? I don't think that should be a point.
But this has happened before, by the way. I can remember Ali McCoy's talking about three panel members that he wanted to know who they were. He knew fine well who they were. And at the end of the day, I think once you start pandering to people and their conspiracy theories and their allegiances, you're starting to pander to the gutter element of Scottish football, Ruffy. Yeah. It's like me saying, well, don't give us any opinions on, Celtic against Partick Thistle, because you played for Partick Thistle for all that years. You're going to be biased. Don't give us any thoughts on the Old Firm game. He's a Rangers man. Why should we listen to him? It's just a nonsense.
Yeah, and the other thing as well we have to take into consideration is these are individuals with private lives, and we've already seen certain referees being pillared by the people that you're talking about, like throwing bricks through windows and all that carry on. That's something we don't want to go down, and that's why basically we shouldn't know who they are, you know, because if we knew these people that we're talking about, you know, take things into their own hands. And
here's another thing, Ruffy. Footballers don't know the rules.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
They want players on the panel as well. I don't know the rules.
Yeah.
So, you know, at the end of the day, what are you going to get them on? You know, oh, he's a good lad. You know, that was in my view, that was never a foul. Well, here's the rules. I have to explain it.
The laws of the game, I was saying, some of the times they say it can be over aggressive and things like that, you know, and it can be dangerous, that some of the tackles, and as you say, the players would have a different opinion on that. What really I felt should happen with these situations is the first person to be asked should be the referee who was actually refereeing the match, and then he gives his opinion to the panel. The panel still meet, but the referee, having seen it again on footage of it, should say one way or the other, I think I got it right, or I did make a mistake. You know, that should be the first part.
Are now saying they want clarification from the international authorities on red card situations.
Yeah.
Why do you need clarification? You should have had it at the start of the summer. I mean, we're in a situation here now where, believe me, if Christopher Ayer waits to the last couple of minutes of an Old Firm game, if Celtic were winning it, he'd be able to go up for a header with Al McGregor and then wait till he falls and then stiffen him.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, though. The thing is, there are so many instances, Peter, we see them on TV, that we actually, even we had an argument with each other about, well, that should have been a red card. No, it wasn't. That was a penalty. Some of the ones, you know, you've seen them in the World Cup, the ball hitting the arm of a player, and you're told if it's accidental, it's not a penalty, and yet, you know, you see ones that you obviously are accidental, but the penalty's still given. But we've had an argument. It's hard to work out what is correct, isn't it?
Yeah, but we've had an argument with Ruffy over the situation with Morelos earlier on up at Pittodrie. He gets a red card for it. I thought it was soft. I didn't think it was a red card. I thought Alan McGregor's was a red card.
Yeah, well, the Alan McGregor one, I watched that closely, and the only thing I could think about with maybe the panel was he wasn't looking at the scenario. He was actually turned the other way when he kicked out back the way. Yeah. So that's maybe, they might have looked at that and thought, well, he wasn't looking there, he wasn't trying to be aggressive, he's just kicking out because he thought the player had a hold of him. You know what I mean?
I don't need to look at you to punch you. Do you know what I mean?
I know, but if you don't know, you don't know whether the guy's still there when you lash out if you're not looking. But he was going away from the city. Yeah, he was.
No, but really, Gordon. Yeah. Do you think that was a red card?
He was going away. Well, I thought, you know, I thought he should have been.
Do you not think that was a red card?
But what I'm saying is, my looking at it from the point of view of the people, the panel who were actually looking at it
from their perspective,
they might have taken into account the fact that, so wait a minute, he wasn't looking, he was moving the other way when he did it. He didn't make a lot of contact. I would say that too. There wasn't a massive amount of contact, but there was contact.
Didn't give him a right good kick.
No.
The second part of it, I can't remember. Here we go with the laws of the game. I remember the second bit of it is brutality.
Yeah.
No, how do you deem brutality?
So you can get back up.
Exactly.
No.
Anyway, okay, you can have your view on it at PLZ Soccer on Twitter, on our Facebook account, and of course when you're watching the programme on YouTube as well. And we get more than a few contentious comments coming back. We welcome all opinion on it. We are not the light, the way, and the truth, and we always welcome good and bad, providing, of course, you're not abusive, which again, we end up just deleting or blocking you. It's as simple as that. I'm not going to lie to you. Anyway, on to Celtic as far as their three players that Brendan Rodgers mentioned today that he's keen to get on new deals.
We're pretty close on Lee. He obviously clearly wants to be here. We want him to be here, so that'll be good news. So we think that's not too far away. Scott has made it clear he wants to be here, and I'm sure there'll be a deal done pretty soon on that. You know, he's quite relaxed about it. He knows what we think of him here at the club, so hopefully that will get done. And James and his people, I know, will be speaking with the club, and likewise a player that we'd love to extend here, and because he's been absolutely brilliant in my time here.
Yep, so he wants to try and reward some of the players that have been really the backbone of Celtic, Ruffy.
Yeah, I think it has to be seen that if you're not going to bring in a large number of players, you've got to keep the players you've got there happy. And the ones he's going to put on contracts have done well. You know, I think if you were to replace them, you'd be talking a few bob. You know, so I think it's good to get them on an extended contract, that you're not going to lose them But I still I think the supporters would like to think when January comes there will be some more players coming in.
Yeah, it's St Mirren against Celtic tomorrow. We haven't given our predictions yet on this, guys, but Oran Kearney, what a baptism for him. He's got to try and get the best out of Alan Stubbs' squad for this game.
The only thing that's in his favour is there's no pressure on him, Peter. You know, nobody will be expecting him to be getting a result. So he goes out there and he can do what a lot of managers actually do, which is just to sit in the stand for the first game. A lot of them do that and just say, you know, I'll let the other guys take it, the coaches or whatever. I'll just watch the game, so I've got I can do an analysis of it rather than have any input in this. And I think that's what he might do, because I mean, the sort of form St Mirren are in, I don't think there's a great deal of pressure. But what he'll have to do is, after this game's passed, he will then need to get things going and pick up, or else St Mirren could be isolated.
How much of a bonus will it be if you can get Gus McPherson there as director of football?
Yeah, I think everybody would like somebody like that. Every time we see a manager, the manager wants to concentrate in the park and doing everything in the training ground. If there's somebody else answering calls or dealing with transfers or whatever else as his remit, I'm sure that takes the pressure off the manager.
Okay, give us your prediction.
2-0 Celtic.
I think Celtic will win 3-0.
Okay. There was just one other little mention at the Celtic press conference of, well, it's really the goalkeepers union, because Craig Gordon had this nice little touch to add to the fact that he's now on 53 caps, level with another goalkeeper that we know.
I've been very fortunate enough now to play 53 times. I think that puts me level with Alan Rough, which is a great achievement for me, and you know, for him to have played that many games, it's great to finally catch up with him. You know, he sent me a message to wish me all the best and getting to 50. That was a great thing for him to do. Only the third goalkeeper to get there, so to now be on the same as him and trying to go one better is a huge thing for me.
What a nice touch, Ruffy.
Yeah, when he got to 50, I appreciated, you know, how difficult it is to get to 50. It's a target everybody wants to get to. There's lots of players just fall short of it, but players make so much money out of the game just now. I've always said it, you know, that at the end of the day, it's about what you've done in the game and where you are in the history.
How old were you, Ruffy, when you got to your the same amount of caps, 53? How old were you when you played your last game for Scotland?
36.
So about the same then?
10
really?
years. If Craig Gordon hadn't got injured with the injuries he's had, he would have challenged Jim Leighton's 92.
Yeah.
You know, because I think with the 2 or 3 years that he was out injured, you know, he lost maybe 20, 30 caps. So, you know, he's unfortunately picked up the injuries, so I think he would maybe have beaten Jim.
Yeah, will you be emotional when it finally goes, Ruffy, and you just go down another rung in the calendar?
No, to be third in the history of football, the goalkeeper. And there's been a lot of goalkeepers. As I said, it's in the record books, and your name will always be there. You know, I'm sure Alan McGregor has now got something to go for as well. You know, if he is number one. I think Alan's around about
40 odd, isn't it?
No, I think he's about
37, something like that, yeah. Of course, that thing about it as well, it's great for Craig, as you mentioned there, Ruffy, and of course 53 of those caps, all, you know, either friendlies or qualifiers, none at the World Cups. It's you.
No, that's something I would throw in his face, but I will know that you've told me.
Are you told to mention the World Cup every time that Ruffy's on?
It's in his
we only do it when Barry's here.
It's in his contract, much the same as yourself with your treble at Rangers. Anyway, let's crack on. So we've got the predictions. A couple of things. One specifically with you and Gordon, which is great, is UEFA have come up with this plan for a third tournament. Now, and you and I said the same thing today. Oh, the return of the Cup Winners' Cup.
Yeah.
But this third tournament is clearly another tier. For me, is keeping, you know, the clubs down the rungs on the ladder happy. You know, I think Aberdeen have mentioned, their chief executive Duncan Fraser has mentioned that he hopes this is not, you know, just another one of those scraps off the table to exclude Scottish clubs from the Champions League. But for me, they're going about it in a clandestine manner. I think at the end of the day, they're trying to just throw the scraps to everybody while the elite play in the big tournament.
That's the worry I've got about that, actually, Peter. Spot on. I thought to myself, why do we need the third tournament? I mean, even the Europa League is not really creating an awful lot of interest. It does in the latter part, maybe in terms of who's playing, but most of the time people can't even tell you who won it last year. You ask them and they can't remember. The Champions League is the tournament. Now, my worry about it is the fact that by creating a third tournament, they're going to keep the top tournament, the main tournament, Champions League, to an elitist level, and maybe even have more teams from the major leagues in there, so that they don't. They're always worried. UEFA were always worried about it. When I was at the SFA, there was meetings and discussions about. They were always worried about the big clubs breaking away. You know, the major clubs in Spain, England, Italy, Germany, breaking away and forming their own tournament. And that's why the Champions League was created, in order to keep these people on board with UEFA. Now, it could be a little bit a sign now that they're going to do this again, is to actually increase the number of elite teams from the elite nations in a major tournament, and the others can play in the other two tournaments.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, at least Scotland have, you know, a fighter on there. And Peter Lawwell will be battling to know exactly what's going on. And I'm sure from his point of view, he'll be looking at the collective, admittedly with Celtic in mind, but looking at the collective of what Scotland's representation is going to be. So he'll be fighting the corner in there, hoping that Scotland is not excluded in some capacity, Ruffy. But as Gordon mentioned there, I'm looking at the two tournaments at the moment. Your third place drops in to keep them all happy with the cash flow into the Europa League, which is a nonsense. The Europa League itself, there's not enough money in it. All the big clubs are getting the access to the riches of the Champions League. The Europa League, there's not enough money in it. There's very little interest, as far as I'm concerned, until we get to the latter stages of it. And I think I would quantify that Ruffy statement by saying, I think it's not that there's no interest, it's that clubs in Scotland like Rangers and Celtic expect to be in the Champions League as the years have gone by. Don't want to be in the Europa League.
No, they don't, but unfortunately, the way finances are just now, and Celtic have proved that this year, they're not going to be in it, because they don't have the finance to be in it. You know, they don't have the.
But that's the point
power.
of the Europa League. That's a nonsense as well, isn't it? And this third tier, what's that for? Is that for teams that finish 5, 6, 7, 8, 9?
Yeah.
Well, I think you just have to look at the Europa Cup, the qualifying rounds that Celtic and Rangers could come through. I mean, I don't even know who these teams are. You know, some of the teams that are in it. You know,
So it might not be for lower teams going down to those sort of positions, but it might be teams in the elite leagues that go down to those positions for Europe. Do you know what I mean? Because what they'll be saying is they want to have all the major country teams playing in the Champions League. And days gone by, there was one team from each country, as we know. The league champions were in there.
Yeah, well,
those days are gone.
It could be a knockout tournament, Gordon. It could be something like that. It could be that they turn around and say suddenly this is for cup winners again. Who knows? But until you see the blueprint of it, there is, and I understand where Aberdeen are coming from, a real air of suspicion at what's going on. You know, as I said, you know, if we're ever doing features on here, there won't be one on Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, because quite simply, I think he is indicative of the way the elite clubs are acting. You know, quite simply, they want their own special group, and to hell with everybody else.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the thing about it, you know, the thing that there maybe we all consider there's too many European games as it is at the moment. I mean, you think about it getting through to the Rangers they had to play 8 games. So Celtic so far, they've already played 8 games in Europe. Then they've got 6 coming up. So before they get to the end of the season, from August to December, you're talking about 14 games already in Europe. You know, in days gone by, you played 6, 7 or 9 maximum to get to the final.
Yeah.
Now, you know what I mean? Now you're just to get beyond the first part of it. Now you've got 14 games.
Yeah, I mean, that's easy enough for other clubs when they've got massive squads where the second squad's probably better than half the teams in England. I'm talking about, I mean, I'm watching a documentary at the moment on Manchester City, you know, and they were going for a quadruple at one point, and then they started picking up injuries right, left and centre, and they're going, City have major injury worries, and I thought, who cares? City have got billions, and they've been spending it on players that would grace any other first team.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was on record that I think it was Man City and Chelsea have got something like 32 players out on loan.
Yeah,
to countries throughout Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have we got any good news? We've just moaned for about 20 minutes, Gordon. It's unbelievable. We have got good news. We're going to put you on a high, because here are the 2 goals that Glasgow City scored to knock out Samatia Barcelona. Well, I say knock out. This is obviously a fantastic result. Look at this. The first one, Haley Lauder, just reacting quickest to put that ball into the back of the net. That's exactly what you need in the penalty box, Gordon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was a shot at goal, obviously, to start with, but this is a good goal from someone we know very well.
Look at Crichton, Ruffy, in there, just a glancing header. She knows where the goal is.
Yeah, and she certainly knows where the free kick's going as well. She was on the move before the free kick was taken, so it looks as if it was something for the training ground, and yep, it's good. Get her back in touch with the national side, scoring goals in midfield.
And the other thing is the celebration looked as if she was suffering from a lack of confidence.
It was almost like saying, I told you I was going to score, come and support me. But I was just looking at the stadium there. Obviously, all the criticism has been at Hampden. That stadium was very similar to it, with a big track round it and the crowd. If there was any crowd there, I didn't see a lot of people in those pictures, but they would be quite a way away from the pitch. And all this debate about whether that's right or wrong, and Hampden might have to be changed a little bit.
Well, Stuttgart have opened their doors and said to the SFA chiefs, come in and have a look at it. Gordon, I like the look of the Stuttgart stadium, but I still think the SFA should look and say, when they eventually get somewhere in the region of 80-90 million, get the stand right in on the park.
Yeah, I agree with you, but the Stuttgart one, I think was about 57 million that Stuttgart spent on it. I think to get that kind of money, they're going to have to be a mixture of the SFA, and maybe going to have to take loans on it. They have to provide money, private funding, and maybe government and Glasgow City Council money as well. But it's going to be a big investment to do it.
I'm glad you've narrowed it down to that, Gordon.
Yeah.
They'll need to start selling other debentures over and above the ones that they've sold already, Ruffy, to get that sort of money.
Yeah, but it's amazing that there are two beneficiaries already, Sir Tom Hunter and Sir Willie Hockey. I'm sure there'll be other big football people out there who'd be...
Name them. Name them so we can call them.
Well, these two, they two give us a bit of a surprise coming up with. I don't think we saw that coming.
Listen, just before we finish, what a nice gesture in football for the Dice Football Club, the boys' club, because Stuart Armstrong's move to Southampton for $7 million, suddenly they get a six-figure sum that I don't think they expected for the development of that young boy. And what a brilliant gesture. Stuart Armstrong is over there shaking hands and just saying, this money's coming to you.
Totally, but I think that's great, because I think a lot of these clubs have done a lot, and the fact is, if that's where he started and came through at that club, then they deserve something from it. There's no doubt about it, and it's great to see that. I was really delighted for them. The only thing, it puts them in a totally different level from some of the other clubs at boys level, but the clubs should be rewarded for the fact that a star player has eventually come through and got a big move.
You just see all the secretaries now and all the boys' clubs looking through their records to see what players they had and where they are and where they've been.
Who did Alan Ruff come from? Where did Ruffy play?
I think they're well aware of where he came from, but the money didn't really flow in the way it should have. You just think, Ruffy, God, you could have been a multi-millionaire. If you were playing today, Ruffy, you would be a millionaire. Well, the standard of goalkeeper you were. I mean, I'm being deadly serious.
I'm just thinking on record just now, I think anybody that's at a top club just now is a millionaire.
Yeah.
And that's why we always say that managers get into a dressing room and want to have a go at somebody, and then all of a sudden you've got 11 millionaires sitting looking at you. You wonder, how you get it through to them. That's why you have to be good at the man management.
Yeah, would you
We weren't in it for the money.
What? Are you kidding me? I've never met two more raging characters than you two about the money you could have earned in the game. You would have been millionaires. When I think of your quality as a midfielder and the goals you scored and the teams and the skill that you had, and of course, Ruffy, a lot of kids don't know that you actually played football, Ruffy. That's the thing about it. They look and they go, what? Yeah, Scotland, what? Yeah. But nevertheless, you were top draw. You could have been a millionaire. And of course, the good thing about him, knowing his character as I do, he wouldn't be talking to me every day. That's a Stonewall certainty. OK, there was a little bit of news from Craig Levein that he's thinking about coming back into the dugout for Saturday. Great news. Great to see the Hearts manager back. I'm sure everyone in the football show absolutely delighted that he is getting back into football in the dugout and feeling better after that Hearts scare. From Gordon, from Ruffy and myself, thanks for watching.
I think be open about your experiences. I think it's okay to talk about your experiences. You're not any less of a citizen if you talk about your experiences. I think about myself. I hated talking about race. I hated talking about my faith, partly because I'm just a Glasgow boy like anybody else. I don't see myself as that identikit Muslim or identikit Asian background. I see myself as a West of Scotland boy, so I didn't like talking about race or religion because it was in some ways highlighting my own difference. But you get to a certain point where you find the confidence to speak about these things. I've now got the confidence to speak about these things because I think I'm in mainstream politics now. I don't need to worry about being pigeonholed or labelled as something that I don't want to be labelled as. So my advice to young people would be confident in yourself, be confident in your identity, be proud of your identity. If you experience something, talk about it. If something goes too far, report it and share your experience with others. Because only if you share your experience with others, you'll learn from other people's experiences and hopefully help make a change in our communities.